briefly discuss the founding of the original Red Cross, and I'm hoping that some of it will be some new information. Then we'll talk about Dr. King and the organizing of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference here in New Orleans. And finally, if time permits, I want to share a little story with you. So allow me to preface with the following quotes. First, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. And I'm going to echo what Josh mentioned earlier. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And the last quote is, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. What is service? What is service? Well, we learned a long time ago, anytime we talk, we kind of refer to Merriam-Webster and we give a definition. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is service. And according to Merriam-Webster, it's the occupation or function of serving in active service. Let me stop there for a second. There was a time when we said, we would ask the question, were you in the service? And folks automatically knew that they meant the military. Then it changed to, were you in the military? And then it changed to, more specifically, were you in the Army? Were you in the Navy? But at the end of the day, we would always ask, did you serve, or thank you for your service? Now, service also includes employment as a servant. It includes working by one that serves for service, help to use, to benefit of others, and to contribute to the welfare of others. And when I think about that, I think about many of the volunteers that I work with the Louisiana region. They are true servants. There is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Victor Hugo. Now, it's funny because when I first read this, and I'm telling my age now, it was on the back of a Funkadelics album. And I said, oh, this is pretty deep for Funkadelics. There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Later, of course, we found out that it was Victor Hugo. The birth of an idea. The Red Cross was born in 1859 when Jean-Henri Dunant, a Swiss man, came up with the idea of helping folks who were on the battlefield in Italy. Some 40,000 men laid dying or dead on the battlefield, wounded for lack of medical attention. Dunant organized a group of local people, local soldiers, to help with the wounds and feed and comfort those on the battlefield. On his return, he called for the creation of a National Relief Society to assist those wounded in war. Dunant wrote, would there not be some means during a period of peace and calm of forming relief societies whose objectives would be to help and care for the wounded in a time of war by enthusiastic, devoted volunteers fully qualified for the task? Sounds like the volunteers in the Louisiana region. Enthusiastic, devoted volunteers fully qualified for the task. The Red Cross formally was organized in 1863 when 5 men from Geneva, including Dunant, set up the International Committee for the Red Cross, Well, actually it started as the International Committee for the Wounded, which later became the International Committee of the Red Cross. The emblem was a red cross on a white background, which was the inverse of the Swiss flag. The following year, 12 governments adopted the first Geneva Convention, a milestone in history of humanity, offering wounded and defining medical services as neutral on the battlefield. In addition to that, Denon's early initiative included the creation of the Young Men's Christian Association, known as the YMCA, in 1852, and the World Alliance of YMCA in 1855. So thank you, John Henry Denon, for your service. At present, there are 193 members and 2 observers of the United Nations, of which 190 National Red Cross societies are recognized by the International Committee of the Red Cross. During the war between the states, Ms. Clara Barton, on numerous occasions, risked her life and limb to bring supplies and support to soldiers, including the all-Black 54th Massachusetts Regiment, volunteer Massachusetts Regiment, which was actually recruited by Frederick Douglass, a prominent abolitionist, orator, and author. Let's fast forward, if you will, to the period just after the Civil War, generally known as Reconstruction. Shortly after the end of the Civil War, Clara Barton met Frederick Douglass. Douglass and Barton developed a friendship, and Barton discussed the possibility of establishing a Red Cross Association in the United States. The renowned abolitionist offered advice and support to Barton in her gain for acceptance as in the global community of American Red Cross, or the Red Cross Network. Douglass' name appears on the appeal for funds after the 1882 Mississippi flood. Also in his capacity as Register of Deeds for the District of Columbia, he signed the original Articles of Incorporation for the American Red Cross. Thank you, Clara Barton and Frederick Douglass, for your service. If you will, we're just going to take a few moments to talk about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the SCLC. I usually don't give this account, but since we're amongst family, in the early 70s, I did an internship along with 2 others from my school in Atlanta. And it's kind of serendipitous that we actually stayed at the YMCA. But at the time, it was very, very heated. There were lots of political things going on in Atlanta. They had just elected their new mayor, that was Maynard Jackson. And the police chief refused to leave office. But those are a little sidebar to what we're going to talk about. I told the gentleman, the 2 young men that I was with, I said, and actually they were going into their junior year and I was going into my sophomore year. I said, you know, while we're here, we really need to find a church to go to. And they said, okay. Surprisingly, they actually agreed right away. And our first church was right downtown. It was called First Baptist Church. And it was really interesting in that, again, it was in downtown Atlanta. And there were no Black people in the church. And it's kind of funny near the end because the minister said, are there any visitors? And it's like the whole church turned around and looked. And of course, you know, we got to identify ourselves as visitors. And we said we're from New Orleans, here to do an internship. And they said, welcome. And it was very nice. So the next Sunday I said, well, look, Ebenezer is right down the street why don't we go to Ebenezer? Because actually this church was about 8 blocks away and Ebenezer was about 3 blocks away. So we said, okay, the next Sunday, we went to Ebenezer Baptist Church. Now, Ebenezer was the church of Dr. King, his father, his grandfather. And it's the original church I'm talking about, not the one across the street, the new church. But there at Ebenezer, church started for 10:30, and we actually arrived just about 10:30. There were no seats anywhere. We told the ushers we were visiting from New Orleans. And as you know, folks in Atlanta have this love-hate relationship with New Orleans. So they actually ushered us up to the front pews. We were about maybe 10 feet or so from the pulpit. And his mother, say Mama King, she was playing the organ. The Daddy King, he was talking about kids, that particular sermon. And he said, I remember, he said, you know, kids are a lot like steel. They have a very strong will. And he said, now, you know, if you want to get steel to bend, you have to apply a little heat. So from time to time, you have to apply a little heat. Now, for those who are in social work, I'm not advocating beating or whipping kids. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about what he said. So I told the two fellas, I said, listen, you know, God is everywhere. So let's get there early so we can sit in the back in the balcony. And we got there earlier. We were upstairs in the balcony in the back of the church. And right where we were sitting the Sunday before, in the exact same place, a guy jumped up. He had 2 guns in his hand, and he said, I'm taking over this blah, 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 blah. And he shot. Mother King was playing the Lord's Prayer on the organ, and she put her hands over her face like this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe they're making a movie or something. And then he started shooting again. And everybody ran, stampeded out the church. And, you know, being upstairs, of course, you have to go down the stairs. And we ran back to where we were living. And I called home and I said, they just shot Dr. King's mother. And of course, my mother said no, because that would be on television. I said, it just happened a minute ago. No, that would be on TV. I said, all right. Watch the TV, because it's going to be on TV. That was I have 2 Martin Luther King stories. I'm going to stop there. But that's my first Martin Luther King story. And I didn't realize it was actually just about six years after Dr. King had been assassinated in Memphis. It was really something that it's always on my mind. I had no idea that I would be president of SCLC at the time, 0 idea. But I just wanted to share that with you because I think everybody at a certain age has a Martin Luther King story. If you grew up in the South, most folks in their house probably there was a picture of Jesus, there was a picture of John F. Kennedy, and in African-American houses, there was also a picture of Martin Luther King, and some other houses also. So we all had that kind of experience. All right, back to MLK and SCLC 101. In 1953, there was a bus boycott in the city of Baton Rouge. Most aren't aware, but that was the first boycott in the U.S. And it was conducted by Reverend Theodore Jemison, pastor of Mount Zion First Baptist Church, and he was also president of the National Baptist Convention. I remember the church very well because in 2016, those who know Smider and I, we spent a lot of time over there getting resources and actually delivering resources. But that's Mount Zion First Baptist Church. And 2 years after that, Reverend Jemison received a call from his colleague and friend and several visits. Dr. King wanted to know, he wanted to get information on how to conduct a nonviolent direct action bus boycott. Well, in 1955, the Montgomery Improvement Association was established with Dr. King as the president, to basically deal with the fact that Miss Parks, Miss Rosa Louise Macaulay Parks, was arrested for sitting on a bus after paying her fare. She was arrested because she refused to move to the back to the colored section. And as a result of that, it led to a boycott of the city buses, which lasted 381 days. 381 days. And that's a long time for a boycott, after which, of course, they changed the rules. Dr. King made numerous visits to Louisiana for meetings, rallies, and other activities, especially the three largest cities, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport. The founding of SCLC. On January 10, 1957, there was a coordinated meeting called in the city of Atlanta to promote a nonviolent transportation integration organization. That exact same day, 6 bombs exploded in Montgomery, Alabama. 4 churches were bombed and 2 homes. One of the homes was that of Reverend Abernathy, who was Dr. King's lieutenant, first lieutenant, if you will, and good friend. So they didn't attend that meeting in January. An organization meeting was called for February 14th, almost a little over a month later, in the city of New Orleans at New Zion Baptist Church. And that church was pastored by Reverend A.L. Abraham Lincoln Davis, Jr. That is when the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was formally organized with Dr. King as the first president. All of the officers, board members were elected at that time. And he served as president. He served in that post until his assassination on April 4, 1968. Dr. King and the SCLC are credited for most of the civil rights advances in this country. Now, my friends from NAACP probably takes credit for most. And let me just say this, I've been a life member of NAACP for a very long time, more than 40 years actually. But the truth of the matter is SCLC and Dr. King actually get credit for most of the civil rights advances in this country. Not because so much they're an advocate organization, but because they are a humanitarian service organization. In addition to the coveted Nobel Prize and a national holiday in its honor, Dr. King has been recognized by monuments, or with monuments and memorials around the world for his humanitarian services. SCLC is built on services. When you think in terms of the growing list of countries with monuments to Dr. King, they include Sweden, Hungary, Nigeria, Bosnia, Ghana, China, South Africa, Israel, England, India, and Mexico, to name a few. In 2014, it was estimated that over 900 streets bear the name Martin Luther King in some 41 states, plus Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. There's so much that we could talk about in terms of Dr. King. But as I said, I didn't really want to keep you an extra long time. I promised to let you go before dinner. I want to share a story of a young man who actually, during the war, World War I, He was a 15-year-old who misrepresented his age, which is a nice way of saying he lied about his age. He misrepresented his age to join the Red Cross ambulance service. He wanted to be an ambulance driver for the Red Cross. Before the war ended, he did not complete his training, so he was really unable to move forward. He worked in various jobs from time to time, and it wasn't until about the 50s that he moved out to San Bernardino, California. And let's just call him Ray for the sake of the discussion. He found a small but successful restaurant that was run by Richard and Mac McDonald. He was amazed by the effectiveness of the operation. And what they did was they limited their menu to only a few things: burgers, fries, beverages. And the amazing part about it is their focus was on service and quality delivery. Service and quality delivery. Now it's interesting because they began to look, the two brothers began to look for a franchise agent, someone to help them build. And in 55, Ray actually founded what's called the McDonald's system. Later on, the McDonald's Corporation. And years later, he bought actually the rights to the operating system. Raymond Albert Kroc is his name. He wanted to build a system of restaurants that would be consistent in terms of service delivery, in terms of quality, in terms of uniform methods of preparation. And it sounds so much like many of the other successful organizations that we are all here familiar with. He served three things: burgers, fries, and beverages. And he said that in terms of quality control, he wanted them to be the same from Alaska to Alabama, exactly the same quality control. By 1957, kind of serendipitous because that's when SCLC started. By 1957, McDonald's had sold 100 million hamburgers. 100 million hamburgers. Ray Kroc wrote that if I had a brick for every time I repeated the phrase service, quality, cleanliness, and value, I think I'd probably be able to build a wall across the Atlantic Ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, SCLC, Dr. King emphasized services. SCLC is built on services. It's so important to what we do in terms of the American Red Cross. Quality services, no matter where we go, delivering the same services to everyone, everywhere, making sure that we treat everybody with dignity and respect at all times. Let me just conclude by saying that it's always a pleasure to speak to my colleagues and my friends, and we want to say happy Martin Luther King holiday. Enjoy yourself. Do something for somebody. On that note, thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Caitlin, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to thank you so much for speaking and ask if anyone had any questions.
Okay.
You know, I love how you say everyone has a Martin Luther King story, like it's common, but it's really not. You're an incredible guy, and it's spectacular that you lived the life that you did. Oh, Jack Whitehead has his hand up, and I think he has a question. Go ahead, Jack.
Reverend, this is Jack. I'm unmuted. Good morning. How are you? I'm in Baton Rouge. I work with I'm a chair of the Capital West chapter. Thank you for your inspiring talk this morning. We have many challenges in our Red Cross organization. We have many challenges in our country. I know we're going to do well and we're going to get back to goodness. And thank you for your talk this morning. I found it very inspiring. With that, I'm going to just hang up and say, we're all doing our service today as best as we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you, Caitlin, for your kind words. Thank you. Thank you.